All right. The Sort of Sports Podcast presents The Big Salad.
If it was a regular salad, I wouldn't have said anything. But you had to have the big salad.
On to episode 3, here with the one and only Quinn Maseko.
Thank you, Ryan. Just want to begin today's podcast by correcting a couple errors we had last time. Couldn't think of the Clemson quarterback that filled in for Trevor Lawrence when he was out with COVID. His name is DJ Uiagalelei. And I mispronounced the top recruit for next year's class in women's basketball. It's going to UConn, and it's AZ Fudd and not Azzy Fudd. So I apologize for that. Anyway, today we're going to flip around to NFL trades, NBA trades. But first, we begin with March Madness. And Ryan, which team was the most outstanding this weekend in the Sweet 16 for the men's tournament?
Well, I think this week it's a lot more interesting. Every matchup feels more marquee because we've already been through 2 rounds. Right now, you know the teams I'm currently most interested in, especially because Kansas lost the night. I said that they looked really good because last week when we recorded, I said how good Kansas looked. Then they ended up losing, so that was painful. I have been shocked by USC this whole tournament. I feel like every game they don't look that good, and then they end up winning, and it's a weird team to watch. So I'm not going to put them because I just think they're odd. But if Evan Mobley wanted to come to Cleveland, I'd be fine with that. But on the other hand, his brother would be a fine late round pick too.
Evan and Eric, I believe.
Yep. And overall, I think the 2 teams that have impressed me the most, one of them was my pick for Cinderella, Oregon State. If they get rolling from three, I don't think anybody's beating them. Mm-hmm. I think they could be a national championship level team, and that's not just because they have momentum on their side. When they're shooting well, they don't miss. They're crazy from deep. That's what I was thinking when I watched their game against Oklahoma State. That's what I was thinking when I watched their game in the second round when they played. That would have been Oklahoma State. So then when they played Loyola Chicago in the Sweet 16, thought that then, and then when they played in the Elite 8,
they're playing.
Yeah, when they're playing tonight in the Elite 8.
Yes,
against Houston. I keep misspeaking. When they play in the Elite 8 against Houston, another high-powered offense, it's going to be really interesting because both teams are offensive dominant teams. Houston is more about getting to the rim, fast break opportunities with some threes. Oregon State is very shoot the ball from deep, and I'm just incredibly interested to see what happens there because I've really liked what I've seen out of them. But I talked a lot about the team that I'm not even sure. I think my real pick is going to be UCLA. Mm-hmm. And my thing with UCLA is that they're kind of the same deal. When they get rolling, they got it going. Granted, this could come backfire. They do play Michigan tomorrow. Michigan has a lot of size, and that's the thing UCLA doesn't have. Mm-hmm. So that is an incredibly interesting matchup to me because you've got Michigan, who doesn't shoot the ball incredibly a lot from deep. Really, Smith is the only guy who does. But they got Wagner and Dickinson, who like to run it in. Mm-hmm. And then on UCLA, you got who a friend of mine said, Prince plays basketball now with his haircut. I can't remember his name for UCLA. He's got the big poofy hair. I can't remember who he is, but...
Oh, Tiger Campbell, the point guard.
Yes, he's very good. And he can do anything. When he got that big steal against Alabama, that was a huge play. He's really impressed me. Definitely probably brought up his draft stock.
And combine that with Jaime Jaquez Jr.,
yep.
Like I'd call him Triple J. Triple J has been, fearless from shooting outside. And he has not played this well all year until this run in the tournament.
Yeah. And you and I were both super high on Alabama. Alabama didn't play a terrible game.
They
UCLA, did. You think Alabama played terrible?
I don't know if they played terrible.
They did not play their best game.
They played awful from the charity stripe. They were under 50%, and that's really what burned them in the end, is they had opportunities to win in regulation, and they did not make their free throws.
That's really what it came down to. Mm-hmm. If you make one more free throw, now granted this is the most tit-for-tat situational thing ever, biggest what if, but if you make one of those free throws, technically that crazy shot from half court, you win the game.
You win the game. Mm-hmm.
If we want to be technical, but granted, you don't know if that ends up you getting up in that situation, whatever. Mm-hmm. But there is an argument to be had where I think Alabama played their normal game. They just free throws is the only thing that killed them, and UCLA was just outplaying them, I think, everywhere.
Yeah.
So that's what impressed me about UCLA. I think there's a high chance they lose to Michigan, but they look good, and also Gonzaga is really good. I just hope Oregon State or a UCLA or a Michigan can beat them.
I will say that there is a feel-good story out of UCLA, even though they're not my pick, is that Mick Cronin has not been able to see his father, Hep, since last year when the pandemic started, and every time they put him on TV to show how he's cheerful because he coached basketball in the Cincinnati area and one of the suburbs before Mick Cronin went over into the college game and took over UC. So I always think that's a very good feel-good thing to see on during their games, even though I was, frustrated when they played Michigan State and they came back and won, but that's nevertheless, you can't paint over that.
Yeah.
Little happy moment. But I had a tough choice between this team and USC for being the most outstanding this weekend, but I'm going to take Arkansas, the Razorbacks, because they have been down in every tournament game they've had this year, and a couple of them have been double digits as well, and they have came back. They weathered the storm every time. Musselman, who was the coach of Nevada a couple years ago when they had a Cinderella run to the Sweet 16, he has led this Razorback team. Last year was his first year. Obviously didn't get in the tournament because there was no tournament, and then this year with the tournament has definitely exceeded expectations. But every time they make those comebacks, they get the momentum on their side in the second half, and it's been really fun to watch them. I think they're going to be a tough match for Baylor, and I'm going to be interested to see how Baylor takes them on, and they obviously play tonight as well. So
Baylor's been playing, though, and what scares me is Baylor's been playing like December Baylor, which is the Baylor team that I thought looked like a national championship winner. So that scares me. And I will completely agree with you on Arkansas. I was completely wrong about Arkansas. I thought Arkansas was total fakers and awful. And if you told me they'd be in the Elite Eight, I would have laughed at you. Yet, here they are, and I think they're a legitimate Final Four contender. Granted, if I had to pick any team that's not a 1 seed to win the national title, I would go with Oregon State. I really like what they're doing. But Arkansas is looking really good. And this isn't something we have written down as a topic, but I have to ask you now that we're sitting here. Pac-12. The Pac-12's been doing really well. What do you think about that? The Pac-12 has been the best conference so far as longevity in the tournament. Do you think this is a false narrative? Do you think it's just luck? What are you thinking?
Well, I was just talking about this with my dad last night, and I said, gotta eat my words again, because 2 weeks ago when we started this podcast, I railed on and on and on about how the Pac-12 is the Conference of Champions. They've been coined that, and it's mostly because UCLA has been there and those kinds of things. And now they have 3 Pac-12 teams in the Elite Eight. So obviously they have the most chance. They have the biggest they have the highest probability, and they have the highest probability to get somebody to the Final Four. I mean, they have USC in the West. They have Oregon State in the Midwest, and then UCLA. I'm sorry, I think that's the Midwest, and then I believe Oregon State is actually not in the East. I can't remember the regions.
Yeah, I can't remember the regions either.
I know they are in the East because Baylor's in the South. All right, anyway, figure that out finally. But they have the highest probability to get in there, and I don't know if it's luck, but I think they were underestimated, to say the least. Definitely underestimated in their ability to play basketball this year. And who would have thought UCLA was coming? They lost they lost a recruit to the G League. They had a couple freshmen leave early, one and dones. And they definitely have surprised everybody. Oregon State surprised everybody because they were picked last in the Pac-12 media poll to begin the year.
I love those T-shirts. Those ones they have, those are great.
I don't even know what they are.
They have T-shirts that said I think it was their ranking, and then it says this to champion because they were Pac-12 champions. And so they've really went with this mantra of everybody thought we sucked and we won the Pac-12.
Right.
And the Pac-12 right now is being talked about as the best tournament conference. So
Yes,
the
yes.
best conference for the tournament this year has
Yes.
been Pac-12. Now, there is Arkansas Big 12 then? Arkansas.
No, Arkansas is the SEC.
Oh, they are SEC. You're right. So there's no Big 12 teams other than Baylor.
Correct.
So Baylor's
So
Big 12.
Yeah, so each conference that's left, there's only one, but outside the Pac-12. You
Outside
have one
the
Big
Pac-12.
10, you have one WCC,
Mm-hmm.
you have one American, you have one SEC, and you have one Big 12.
Interesting.
That's it. So all the Power 5, I guess the Power 5, I mean, if we exclude Pac-12, the Pac-12 is carrying the Power 5
Yeah, really.
at this moment. So I don't know. It was kind of shocking to see how well they played. Didn't expect it to happen, and but it's March. Like we say, it's March, and anything can happen in NCAA tournaments. So
No, I completely agree with you. That's why I really like the Oregon State team, but every time I say I really like a team, they end up losing. So maybe I should keep my mouth shut. UCLA, though, has been fun because it feels like every year people are like, ooh, UCLA this year, and then they end up not doing so hot.
right.
And this year it's been like, oh, UCLA's nothing. And then they ended up doing really well. So it's kind of funny to me how they're the masters of reversing your expectation.
Mm-hmm.
And I also find it fun with like that storyline you said about the UCLA. It would be really cool to have a UCLA Oregon State national title.
Right. And if you didn't know this, last night was the first time ever two Pac-12 teams played each other in the tournament in its whole existence. It
Wow.
was USC Oregon. So that would
Wow.
be the second one to ever have happened.
USC's weird. I like some games like they play well, but then I never feel like they're doing well. They're a really
We'll
weird
talk
team.
about them later.
They're
We're
weird.
gonna talk
They're a
about
weird
them
team to
later.
watch.
But we're going to move on, and now we're going to say, Ryan, which team was the most outstanding this weekend in the Sweet 16 for the women's side of the tournament?
I'm going to go with the easy pick here, and this is kind of the reverse thinking than what I went with my men's. With my men's, I was thinking, like, who really played a close fighting game? This would be like picking Gonzaga, where they dominated so much, it's just like, oh crap, yeah, they're really good. And you're wearing your UConn hoodie, so...
Obviously, as they play tonight at 7 o'clock against Baylor, be sure to tune in if you're listening to this right after it's put on. But obviously, it might not be put on tonight. So anyway,
I'll probably try to get it done by tonight.
it might not be before 7, though. So
Yes, that's
disregard this disclaimer. But anyway,
So UConn really had the big win. They just look really strong. I don't have any doubts about them. Especially, I really like the fact that they're playing Baylor right now because Baylor's a good women's team. And if they win this, that really, I think, solidifies them as the team to beat in the tournament. And we're going to get to NC State later. Still very surprised about that. I really liked that team. So with them gone, I'm not super high on Stanford. I actually think I prefer Louisville. But UConn... It feels weird going against them. They're really good.
right. Obviously, it's my team. It could be the easy layup for me to pick my team as well. But I don't pick them as the most outstanding because they had Gino Auriemma back on the sideline for the first time in this tournament. And that's why I didn't think so either. I didn't take Stanford either. I thought Stanford did play their best game of the tournament. They looked a little uneasy in the second round. I thought Tara Vanderveer definitely put their strengths up in that matchup. But I took Texas. I took Texas as the most outstanding team this weekend in the women's tournament because it's a completely new scheme there in Texas. The Longhorns, they got a very good coach in Vic Schaefer. He was actually with Mississippi State for the past 9 seasons where he took them to Final Fours consistently. And he decided to actually, after building a home there, near Mississippi State University, decided to go back home where he's from. He was a Texan boy where he grew up. He grew outside of Houston. He also coached at Houston State or Sam Houston State University. I forget what it is. And then before he moved on later on in his career, so he took the Texas job, but he had his team very well prepared. He pushed them in a last-second run against Maryland.
Maryland's a good team, too.
Yes, Maryland's a good team. And and they were down 59-57 at about 90 seconds to go. And Maryland scored a last-second basket, which was an awful possession to end the game on. But Texas went on a 7-0 run. Maryland had no answers. Brenda Freese, the future Hall of Famer, who already has a national championship under her belt, she couldn't get her team to sustain the leads that they had throughout the whole game. They jumped out to a 9-0 run in the beginning, but Texas stayed to their game plan. They defended very well. Maryland, the best offense probably in the nation, just under 92 points per game scored, and they were stifled to 61. So I have to go with the Longhorns on that answer.
Yeah, I mean, Texas played a good game too. I completely agree. I think it's very funny how with the men's, I kind of went to me, Oregon State and UCLA would be like Texas equivalents, where they fought a hard-fought game and beat a team that a lot of people wouldn't expect them to beat. Whereas with the women's, I went more of just UConn's as good as we expected. To me, they played outstanding because when UConn's hitting on all cylinders, they're by far the best team in women's basketball. So
yeah, it's gonna be. We'll talk about that a little later, so I'll move on.
All right.
Today, since last week we played What's the Word, today we're going to play Toss Up. And basically what we have, 2 options. We toss them up. You got to pick one. So anyway, first toss up today, who was the biggest upset in the Sweet 16 for the women's tournament? North Carolina State or Maryland?
I liked Maryland, but by far NC State. I thought if there was anybody who was going to beat UConn, it was them. I was really high on them for some reason. I just had a feeling, and I shouldn't have said anything because they lost, and I think it's probably my fault. It's the Klinger curse coming for you.
Well, I predicted Loyola Chicago beating Illinois in the men's tournament.
That's true. See, you speak things into existence, and I'm like, no, I like this team, and then that's how it goes.
Yes, so, yeah, don't be overconfident in your picks sometimes. But I'm going to agree with Brian in North Carolina State here as well. The Wolfpack, a number 1 seed, they played Indiana out of the Big Ten. And to go on, Indiana had a commanding lead. They were up 70-60. Okay? Up 10, 90 seconds to go. Well, fouled out Indiana's best scorer and their best defender, Holmes. And she, once she came out of the game, just lost who the team was. North Carolina State took advantage of her not being there on defense. So, went right at Indiana consistently, went up 10, scored 10 almost straight points, and then Indiana was able to weather the storm near the end to take the victory. But that bracket, that region is actually all messed up. There are 2 upsets there. They had, in addition to Indiana winning, Arizona upset Texas A&M. So it's very interesting to see that region shaken up as we go on.
You mentioned that about Texas. I do find it very interesting. They're playing South Carolina. South Carolina, we both know, very good women's program there. That will be an absolute barn burner. Is that tomorrow then?
Yes,
That's tomorrow? Well, that'll be a heck of a game. So I'm going to try to get this out by Monday night like it's supposed to be. So make sure you tune in tomorrow, Tuesday, because that Texas-South Carolina will be some good women's basketball.
Yes.
And, it's Elite 8 time. All the teams are good.
Yes. Yes, it's going to be 2 big games that night. And that leads us up into our second toss-up. Which Elite 8 matchup are you looking forward to watching more? UConn versus Baylor or Stanford versus Louisville?
I went UConn Baylor. Stanford Louisville to me is a closer game, I think. I think Stanford's a tiny bit overrated, and I like Louisville a lot. And the reason I went UConn Baylor though is I think Baylor is the only team that's not a Final Four team. Like the only team in UConn's bracket that I thought could legitimately give them a bit of a challenge. So I want to see UConn pushed to see, is this team breakable? Can a Stanford or a Louisville or a South Carolina or Texas, can one of those teams beat UConn? Can Baylor show the cracks that are going to lead to a demise? Mm-hmm. So I don't think Baylor's going to beat them. If they do, we're going to be sitting here next week like, oh my gosh, Baylor beat them. But if Baylor can show cracks for other teams, I think that's really the key here to this game.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm also taking, obviously, the Huskies versus the Bears as well, because UConn, right now, they're still the second favorite to win the national title behind Stanford. Just a slight favorite in Vegas, slight second favorite underneath Stanford in Vegas. And I think it's going to be a very good game because Kim Mulkey has had very good scouting reports for Gino's teams in the past. Excuse me. I'm interested to see. The matchup here is going to be between two All-Americans, Paige Bueckers and Melissa Smith. And Paige Bueckers, we've talked about her a lot, about how well
we're big Paige Bueckers backers.
Yes, we're definitely
backers.
Buecker backers. We're Buecker backers. And but on the other side, to flip that, Melissa Smith, who's the All-American for Baylor, she played practically the whole game against Michigan, went to overtime. She played 44 minutes, but she didn't miss from the field at all. She was 11-11 from the field. She missed one free throw, couldn't have a perfect game, but she scored 24, and I think her leadership is going to be key to the Bears trying to upset the Huskies. So that's one. It's very intriguing. It's tonight, Monday, at 7 o'clock on ESPN, and I'll be interested to see how it turns out.
I know, I'm very excited. As soon as I get home from an event I have tonight, I'm going to be tuning into that. I'll probably be checking my phone during the event because I definitely want to see what happens there. Another thing, you have the Baylor stats pulled up. Carrington having 19 points off the bench. That's, that could be seen as kind of a fluke, like, hey, good job, you had a hot night. But that just shows great teams in the tournament. A key is having people who step up. I said this about Illinois, which is why I liked them. Mm-hmm. And Loyola ended up having that even more in that game, where you just have guys who step up. Whether they're starters or they're bench players, they just step up in the spotlight. And Carrington, did that against Michigan. And I thought Michigan was a very good team. They were ranked 6th in their bracket, but they're still. I had people telling me, yeah, Michigan's like a legit Final Four. Like, people are really high on Michigan. I think a lot of people were disappointed they are in the bracket with Baylor and UConn, because Baylor is a borderline 1 seed. They're a really good team.
Yes.
So, Baylor, if there's a team that, like I said earlier, if there's a team that's going to beat UConn before they make it to the Final Four, it's Baylor. I don't think that'll happen, but we could see it. I mean, this is a great matchup. Great matchup.
Yeah, when I filled out my bracket for this tournament, I actually had in the Sweet 16, obviously, the coded matchup of Baylor versus Tennessee, and I took Tennessee over Baylor.
Really?
To see another UConn-Tennessee matchup. They already played in the regular season, so I thought, it intrigues the viewers. It does, and it's very, I always like to see that rivalry.
Talk about what we talked last week a lot, and I still think after about a week of ESPN talking about like the women's, I still was thinking about more what we said about marketing, and I think that's like the more and more I thought about, the more true that was. Where it's about like that Tennessee-UConn matchup, do you see commercials promoting that? Like that? No, you don't. And that's a huge thing.
Right.
Like, that's the Duke, North Carolina of women's basketball.
Well,
to a point.
Well, there were two big ones. There was UConn and Tennessee, and then there was UConn Notre Dame. Now, Notre Dame has fallen off the wagon since Muffet McGraw retired a couple seasons ago, but those are two marquee matchups. But also, side note here, the NCAA is inviting in a couple investigators to review both tournaments and get some more gender equity in for next year, which is good.
That's good.
So it makes me happy.
And it's like we said last week, I was thinking about this even more using the March Madness app and the women's app. It's a little thing, but just put it on the same app that promotes it, that gives more people to watch it.
Right.
And the men's games you can watch free on the app. Like, I don't mean to go on the big conversation we had last week, but the women's app, you can't watch the games free. That's a small thing. Exactly. And maybe that's with ESPN's deal. But still, like, there's a real need to push it. And I mean, the MLB offers a game free every week on YouTube. Mm-hmm. And I think that might be, you might only get 2 new fans per game, but 162 games this year, that's, plus 300 fans.
Right.
So there's always, the little things do matter like that.
Right. I will put a plug-in back in for Michigan for the this is their first ever Sweet 16 for the women's basketball team there. So I think they were trying to make the most out of their run, and they obviously did. They pushed Baylor to overtime. It was a very good game to watch Saturday afternoon. So, but I will say this because we always talk about Ryan and I talk about commentators for the men's side, but I have really loved on the women's side Ryan Rucco, I think his name, and Rebecca Lobo. Obviously, you gotta love Rebecca Lobo.
She's great.
She's a star, former star. But I love that pair together. They're my Kevin Harlan. I mean,
Kevin Harlan. That's high praise. That's high praise. You and I both love
Kevin Harlan. He's Kevin Harlan-esque.
Kevin Harlan has to be like him and Mike Breen have to be like two of the most universally liked commentators for any sport.
Yeah.
And Romo.
Not Marv Albert.
No, Albert's all right. Yeah.
Well, he had those scandals.
Yes,
in the Garter
exactly.
Belts, so
And that's what I'm saying. Harlan and Breen, like, I don't meet anybody who doesn't like. Everybody likes when Breen goes bang, and everybody likes Kevin Harlan. He's got the smoothest voice in all of sports. And Tony Romo's the equivalent for football, where everybody just likes Tony Romo because he gives the best freaking.
Yeah, he's the best color commentary. Yeah.
He doesn't do the generic. Well, on a 3rd down, 3rd and 5, in the National Football League, that's a tough. Right. He doesn't do the generic stuff.
Right.
We got a lot of NFL season preview. There's got to be a good 30-minute segment out commentating.
Yes, there will be. There will be. But anyway, moving on to the next question. Next toss-up. Our final toss-up for today. Which Elite Eight matchup are you more looking forward to for the men's tournament? Baylor versus Arkansas or Gonzaga versus USC?
Now, I have Gonzaga versus USC circled here when I was doing the pre-look-through, and I'm actually going to change my answer. The more you and I talked about Arkansas-Baylor, the more interesting that became to me, because I think Baylor's playing their best basketball they've played in months, and I think Arkansas has played their best basketball they're playing all year. So, to me, it's two hot teams meeting up, and I think both these teams are legitimate contenders, and I don't think USC will be... I think if USC-Gonzaga becomes a blowout either way. I don't think USC wins a close game with Gonzaga. I think the only way they beat them is if they get out early and they just keep rolling. And I think when Gonzaga wins, it's almost always a blowout. That's why they're undefeated. They don't have a ton of close games. Like that BYU is really an outlier. So I thought Creighton might push them a little bit, but they didn't. So Gonzaga really has this real knack at pulling away at the start of the second half. And if USC can get ahead and keep it rolling, maybe USC can beat them. But I think that Arkansas-Baylor game, that comes down like the last 5 shots. I think that'll be an absolute hood classic.
It will be, and it's tonight. It's the late game tonight at approximately 10 o'clock because, things get out of hand. You got to clean the court, blah, 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 moving on.
Now, do not sleep on that Houston or Oregon State.
I won't.
Don't sleep on my Oregon State. I'm excited.
I know.
You got to be flipping between that one and the UConn game. Just back and forth.
I always flip back and forth.
Baylor basketball could have a huge night tonight.
They could. I'm hoping not on the
hopefully not
side.
on you, but that would be
not
huge.
on the women's side because I'm rooting for Chino and my Huskies. But
if Houston and Baylor both win, though, the state of Texas officially has to be jumping up and down.
Right. Yes. Especially both Baylors win. They'll be really jumping.
Yeah, that'd be crazy.
So, obviously, I'm going to take the opposite matchup and take Gonzaga versus USC because I really like this matchup and I'm intrigued by it because of the Mobley brothers.
Mobley's good.
And
they're good.
What USC also does on defense, and they run basically a hyperextended 2-3 matchup zone, and I think it's got a better flow. They trouble more people because they have longer length than, as you know, the iconic Syracuse with their 2-3 zone.
Yep.
So, but in addition to that length, they're not big and slow. They're lengthier and they are speedier as well. So I think that's what is going to be interesting. What Gonzaga is going to have to do, and I'm sure Mark Few has already done this in his game plan, is he's probably going to put Crisper or Timmy there in the middle at that free throw line position. That's your distribution position. You want to have a little high-low in that 2-3 zone, especially since it's so spread out. They're going to be able to have more options to distribute there where they can go one-on-one to the basket instead of just having to be forced to pass it out like any other normal 2-3 zone where it's packed in. So I'm intrigued by that. I'm intrigued by the Mobley brothers because last night they did not have to play a very good game. I believe at one point they only had 14 points combined with about 8 minutes to go. So they weren't the leading scorers for last night. I thought that told a lot about USC's story as well here in the tournament because they haven't had to rely on their stars as much as other teams to move on. Okay, they had 23 combined, which is very low because they are the stars of this team. But in addition to USC, if you didn't know, their coach Andy Enfield, who is the former coach of Florida Gulf Coast when they went to the Sweet 16 with Dunk City, he said he has him coach up. He's got that experience in the deep tournament and being deep in the tournament. So I think he knows what he's going to do, and I think it'll be interesting to see those matchups with the Mobleys against Crispert and Timmy as well.
I think you made a really good point there. Now I'm even more interested. I didn't even think about that with the zone. I was thinking, like, Syracuse, another victim to my curse. I said how much I liked them, and then they lost. I now that I'm saying how much I dislike USC, they're going to win the national title. That's what's going to happen now. I said how weird they are and how I think it's odd how, they keep winning, and then they're going to win up being the national champion, and I'm just going to look like an absolute clown, and Oregon State's going to lose because of me. It's all my fault. UCLA is another one of those where UCLA, I really like what they're doing on offense, but on defense, it just feels like every team that plays against them shoots 30%. Like they have this weird, weird thing how they go.
They have this string of luck at UCLA right now, and I don't know how they have it, but they do.
I think Michigan might be the ones to end it. It's the size. Like you can't,
right.
As we said a couple weeks back, you can't teach height.
Right. Yeah, can't coach height, and this is kind of like the game show from the 1980s, Pressure Luck, if you know what that is. They keep pressing.
Yep.
At some point, a whammy's going to get you. So hopefully that whammy's getting UCLA tomorrow night. But moving on to the NFL, we've had a couple blockbuster trades here pre-draft. And Ryan, do you see the 49ers selecting a quarterback in the number 3 pick in this year's draft?
100%, and I think the rumors about New England not trying to get Garoppolo are false. I do think they're trying to get Grop. We all know the big story about Belichick wanting to trade Brady years back and wanting to keep Grop, and I think Grop on that team would be, stunningly good. I really like Jimmy Garoppolo as a system QB. There's no shame in being a system QB if you're a good one. If you're a good system QB, you're, I think the best natural talent is going to be a little better than your best system QB. But being a system quarterback like a Garoppolo is no shame because there's guys who are pure talents like Lamar, and Lamar's never been to a Super Bowl, but Garoppolo has. Granted, that Niners defense was amazing.
Right.
But I'm getting a little off track. I think the Niners are going to take Zach Wilson. I think that's totally the move. You mentioned Trey Lance. I don't mean to take your point away from you. But they did it right after Zach Wilson's pro day. Maybe I'm being a little... not optimistic. It would be
pessimistic.
Pessimistic, thank you, because I want him so bad on the Panthers, and I'm really thinking that they should make a trade for the Eagles pick. But I know we're going to discuss that in a bit. So I think Wilson's who they're getting. It's going to be Wilson versus Wilson in that division, unless Russell leaves, because we're going to be like,
he's not leaving.
No, he's not leaving. The NFC West dominated by Wilson and Wilson, and Stafford.
Murray. And Murray.
And, that division's got great quarterbacks.
I know. It's going to be...
Is Stafford the worst quarterback in that division, potentially?
I don't know how Stafford's the worst.
Well, okay, obviously whoever the rookie they draft is going to be the worst. But
okay, hold on.
Of all time. Right now. Today.
Okay? Russell Wilson, Stafford,
Murray, rookie.
And then...
whoever they take.
If it's rookie or Garoppolo, whoever it is.
Yeah.
Because Garoppolo's coming off an injury. That's why I think he's got a question mark around him.
That's true.
If they keep it.
And that's why I think the Patriots have Cam. Is so if it doesn't work out, they run Cam. And they don't want to do that, but then, they tank and they get somebody better, or they get a wild card spot and they make a trade.
I don't think Belichick's tank.
I don't think he'll tank.
I guess you're right.
He's not going to
tank because he's got to try and prove to Brady he can do something without him.
Can you imagine how much money he'd make? Super Bowl in LA, Patriots, Bucks, Brady going for the repeat. That would be
Brady's
insane.
not going for the repeat.
No, he's not. But you know how much money that'd make? You know how much money that'd make?
Too much.
That would make too much money.
Exactly.
Much rather see Mahomes win.
Well, I don't want to see either of them win. I'd like to see Big Ben run it back, but that's my personal perspective.
You don't want Joe Flacco on the Jets? Crazy. Not the Jets. It's Eagles. Joe Flacco on the Eagles?
Yes.
Future of the franchise.
Whatever that is. But, I definitely see the 49ers taking Well, actually, I can see it either way. I think there are two options here.
Okay.
I think they're either taking a quarterback, and I think it's going to have to be either Fields or Lance because
You don't think
Wilson's
Wilson?
going to go to the Jets.
I think there's okay.
Wilson's going
A
to the
part
Jets.
of me thinks they're swapping Darnold for somebody. The other part of me thinks that they
Why?
probably should draft. Maybe they like
Darnold's
Goff.
not even that good.
Maybe they like Goff. I don't think Darnold's awful. I think Darnold is
He's a better system.
I think Darnold would be. You can argue me on this. I think Darnold would be a wild card spot with the Broncos. I think that Broncos offense fits him.
I still think you have to give Drew Lock another chance this year. He got injured,
Yeah. All right.
and they had the whole
Darnold on the Bears.
COVID crisis.
Well, then their receivers are awful.
And
Never
they
mind.
already signed the Red Rider. So
Oh my, that's so bad. They're not going to make the playoffs of him. And I
know that.
I don't even hate
And
Trubisky.
was playing
I
better.
don't even hate Trubisky.
Trubisky was playing better
No,
at the
I
end of
like
the year.
Trubisky more than I like Jared Goff. Would you argue with that?
I don't think I like any of them, so I don't think it matters.
We're just talking about
I
those.
don't want an opinion.
We're talking about those young quarterbacks who are just weird, like Goff, Trubisky, Darnold. Like, you know what I mean? Where it's like they're not good enough to be
They were
trusted,
inflated.
but
They've
they're
inflated
yeah,
resumes.
yeah. But
Inflated
like
resumes.
you can't decide if they're like they still have something or if they're just awful. And I think like Jared Goff is truly awful, whereas Darnold and Trubisky, I think.
No, I can't argue Goff is awful. I think he's had issues with his hand and his thumb, and he's
Yeah,
suffering
that's
that.
true. That's true.
So, I mean, he's gonna have nothing to work with in Detroit.
Here's the thing, though. You're sleeping on Carson Wentz. I do have to say. I like Carson Wentz of the Colts. I say it every week. I know. You and your Prince Harry hate.
I don't have any hate towards anybody. He just looks like Prince Harry. But, anywho, off topic, because we're talking about Wentz and we
Yeah,
got
yeah,
the
yeah.
49ers,
Sorry.
But I think I can see the 49ers. I can see them taking Justin Fields, and I can see them taking Devontae Smith
Yep.
as well because they have a depleted receiver corps in San Francisco. So I'll be interested to see what they do. Obviously, I don't know if we're going to do this, but this was an idea floated out. We might do a live podcast on NFL Draft Night. So putting that plug in, I'm pretty sure the NFL Draft is April 30th.
Think so.
So April 30th, mark your calendars because you might be listening to us live here from Studio RC.
Yep.
But anyway,
I have one more thing I want to throw in here.
yes,
One
throw
more
it
thing.
in, throw it in.
Is this the most unpredictable quarterback, like the most unpredictable NFL draft of the last 5 years? Because I have to say yes. It's the 29th. It's the 29th. You just looked it up.
Yes, it is the 29th. Okay, we're correcting that. 29th for the draft. Anyway, yeah, I think so because everybody's trading picks. They're swapping picks left and right.
In general,
and
this is just the craziest NFL
it is.
offseason.
And I think it's because the reduction of the salary cap,
Yep.
there's no stability. I mean, it's just everybody's moving left and right. So
Well-
it'll be interesting to see what happens.
We're in that beautiful transition stage where the powerhouses are slowing down and the bad teams are becoming powerhouses. So it's really this power struggle where there's like kind of this gap in the NFL where it's like, yes, the Chiefs are the best set up for the future, but they can't, as we're going to talk about later with Sammy Watkins, they can't hold everybody under salary.
Exactly.
Like they're going to have to get rid of
And that's one
pieces.
of the best things about the NFL is that they force teams to get rid of their good players. because
Yeah,
of the
you have to
salary cap.
pick.
Because compared to the NBA and the MLB where you have
The MLB has no salary cap.
no, but what is it? They pay the tax.
Luxury tax.
Luxury tax. I was thinking wealth tax. It's not the wealth tax. It's a luxury tax. But they have the luxury tax, so basically you just have to pay for that money for the salaries you
Yeah.
have because they're over what that they still have a cap in the NBA, correct?
Yeah, they
That's
still
what-
have a cap
that's
in
what
the
they're
NBA.
paying. That's what they're paying
Yep.
because they're over the cap.
Yeah,
Okay.
if the Yankees decided tomorrow they were going to sign every single free agent, they
can.
could, as
Yeah,
long as they have the
there's no
money.
cap.
Yeah.
And in addition to that, all MLB contracts are guaranteed.
Yeah.
So that
MLB's got
exactly.
bang.
I mean, their PA, that means Players Association, really worked out well with negotiating with the major leagues. But anyway, yeah, crazy off season. I'll be interested to see what happens. Let's put a plug in here. 17-game schedule. You liking that?
From a fan's perspective, yes. From a fantasy football perspective, yes. From a player's perspective, I'm sorry.
Right. Yeah, because they're going to be making less money now because they have to do another game.
Yep.
An additional game on their current pay. But I think this is also the NFL saying, We know we lost $50 million in salary cap, so we're going to add another game to try and get more money for next year to boost
I
that
think that
salary
is a big
cap
part of
back
it.
at the $200 million. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. But moving on to another trade that happened, does it make sense for the Philadelphia Eagles to be trading down in this year's draft?
Yeah. I think it's a pretty simple answer. I mean, I think they need to stick with Jalen Hurts and stop being dumb. And
That's hard for Philadelphia to do.
yeah. Stick with Hurts and just try to build a winning team. Like, this might sound dumb because it should be pretty simple, but trying to win should always be your goal, is to become a winning franchise. And sometimes I feel like teams almost lose that, where it's just like this, I don't know, it's like you're not going to get the next Patrick Mahomes. You have to be okay with having Jalen Hurts. You have to be okay with having the 10th best quarterback. You have to build around that.
Right.
I mean, Joe Flacco won a Super Bowl, guys. And he wasn't...
He's your backup.
Yeah. So I'm saying, like, Joe Flacco in general... I'm saying that Super Bowl to me is a great example where Joe Flacco won a Super Bowl with a Ravens team. Jimmy Garoppolo...
Shouldn't have happened, but anyway.
Yeah. Jimmy Garoppolo won an NFC title with a Niners team. Just because you have the best quarterback doesn't mean you automatically do well. And just because you have the worst quarterback doesn't mean you're automatically terrible.
Right.
And Jimmy Garoppolo and Flacco are obviously not the worst quarterbacks. But I'm saying they are not... Jimmy Garoppolo is probably the not even top 8 for that season. When it comes to, like, quarterbacks, if you have to win a game, he's not the one... He's not picking in your top 8.
Right.
So,
Right.
I'm just saying, like, you need to accept the fact that you have Hurts. He's good. You run with him, and you build around him. There's no franchise stability. So I think really whatever they think is the best way to become a winning franchise, that's what they need to be doing.
I think they're so hollowed out in so many positions.
Yep.
And it's going to take them at least probably 3 years to build up. But I think the first place where they went wrong was here. They hired a no-name coach. Instead of waiting after the Super Bowl and going after Eric Bieniemy, which I think would have benefited Jalen Hurts.
Every team should have went after Eric Bieniemy.
Exactly, and I hope that the NFL gets that change where people cannot it's not people, where teams, organizations cannot hire coaches until post-Super Bowl, because that gives everybody a fair chance that's in the playoffs to go and interview, because they can't interview while they're under contract and have no permission. They're coaching games. So, but I think it doesn't make sense to me, because I think you want to try and get the best player out there for your franchise, and why would you want to move down, I guess, in my opinion. But that's what's happened, so I think the Eagles are going to have to live with their consequences. I don't
still
even know
think
who
the
they're
Panthers-
looking for.
the
I don't even know
Panthers-
who they're looking for. Are they
I
looking for a
don't
tackle,
know.
or are they looking for...
The Panthers needed to get their pick, and if not, now that the Panthers aren't doing that, they need to go out and get the Falcons pick. Because the Falcons are probably the only one who, aren't going to take a quarterback out of those top 5. Yet you just showed me a notification from ESPN saying that the Niners say that they still want Garoppolo in their plans. Maybe he's backup. I don't know. But I do think you don't trade up for an offensive lineman.
Oh, yeah, I agree.
So it's Smith or it's a quarterback.
Right.
If maybe they just really thought Devontae Smith or Jamar Chase. Maybe they thought he was the guy. We will see.
Yeah, I was trying to look up a mock draft to see what they had the Eagles drafting. I assume they're probably going after offensive line. It's so tackle heavy this time or something, but they need help everywhere. I mean, the defensive backfield is awful. The receiver core is awful. They have a lot to fix in Philadelphia, to say the least. Moving on in the NFL, with the free agency signing of Sammy Watkins, moving the Ravens' offensive attack up a level.
I think so. I mean, that's kind of then their biggest issue is like Marquise Brown. I feel like everybody thinks he's a lot better than he is, including me. Like, I feel like I'm like, oh, Marquise Brown, they have him, he's really good. And then I'm like, I watch a game and I'm like, is he? Because, like, there's really some games you don't even realize he's there. So that's weird. And you can't just bet on Lamar to take over and run all around the field like he does against that one Superman game against the Browns. So, you're laughing.
One of the best Monday Night Football games we had last season.
I think ever. That's got to be like top 5.
I was laughing the whole time because I thought, classic Browns, they blew it.
And the Ravens, they got a great young quarterback, and you just got to build around him. Same thing I just said about the Eagles, and I think that's a good move to do that. I've always been a big Sammy Watkins fan, even back when he was back on the Bills. He's fast. He can catch. Two probably things you want in a wide receiver. So he's probably what, your number one? Or is he your two?
I think he's your number one.
He's more of a slot guy, though.
He's going to be number one in the slot.
Yeah, but I'm saying he's more slot. I've seen him go deep with the Chiefs, and this might sound dumb, but he brings a knowledge of the Chiefs' offense.
Right.
And,
he's gonna be
Super Bowl winning a Super Bowl.
Elements.
Yeah.
He's going to be able to take some of those elements with him.
Yeah. Now, granted, if out of all the receivers the Chiefs have, if he's the one to drop out of Hill, Kelsey, and
Pringle,
Hardman, I think you obviously wouldn't want to drop Pringle the most because he's probably Pringle's still good though. Hardman, I think, is a toss-up with Watkins because Watkins is a lot more injury-prone. So I don't think this really hurts the Chiefs too bad. And they obviously have a really good wide receiver coaching down there, so they'll get it worked out.
Mm-hmm. I think at this point, no, until I see it on the field. Because the style of offense they have down there in Baltimore is a college-style offense. It is, yeah. We're in the pistol. It's a lot of running, RPOs. I just don't see it working out until that culture has changed. And I thought maybe that the Ravens would get a sense that the league is catching on to better defend Lamar Jackson as we keep going on. But it looks like they aren't. So it'll be interesting to see how they utilize Sammy Watkins.
Well,
they
that's
obviously need some... I mean, it's going to be interesting to see because the AFC North, it's going to be, we talked about the NFC West. The AFC North is going to be the most competitive again in the
AFC North is going to be the best division in football, especially if Burrow back.
Yes.
And those New Jerseys. Did you see those New Jerseys?
No, because you like your jerseys, so I don't pay attention to the
All right, well, I do want to say I like the jerseys, but also...
always in for the jerseys, folks. Shit here is, have you done the jerseys rank? You did the jersey rankings for NBA.
I did for the city. I did the top 5 cities. Also, that's always what happens when a guy's a big MVP year where he dominates and everybody's like, oh, well, how do we, we always look for the next season to see if teams can stop him. That was a big thing with Mahomes' first year where it's like, is this just... is he a one-hit wonder? Is this just his big moment? Mm-hmm. And then next season, people are going to figure him out. Lamar was that to a point. He's already so talented he can get out of it, but he wasn't. It's going to be really impressive and I think exceptionally difficult for him to have another season like that 2019 season. Right. I think it's borderline impossible for him to have that.
Right.
And I think Mahomes has proven that wasn't that way. Mahomes was an MVP candidate this year, was my MVP. If he would have played in that last game, I think he would have won it instead of Rodgers. And Mahomes, his worst game ever is probably Super Bowl 55, and I think
No.
I'm saying statistically.
I know.
And that
No. Wait.
I have something to say though. His worst. If you say that's his worst game ever, a lot of people still say that's the offensive line's fault. His biggest game that's his fault is Miami.
Exactly.
I was saying to the natural public audience, people that aren't hardcore NFL fans, the worst time they ever seen Patrick Mahomes play was Super Bowl 55, and everyone on the internet was saying, "Oh my gosh, Mahomes is so good. I wish he had an offensive line."
Right.
Like he was pulling off. He made some passes in that game. He shouldn't even. They shouldn't even got there. Mm-hmm. And Hill dropped some of those, and I'm like, that could have potentially got him back into that game.
Yeah.
And he was borderline getting street brawled with the defense. I mean, it was basically just, tackle football with your buddies, count to 5, and then run.
Yeah, not even count to 5, count to 2.
Yeah, count to 2, and then it's fair game to sack.
They're in the backfield already.
It was like I'm saying, I think Mahomes really impressed me. I don't want to get on my big Mahomes love tour, but...
Yeah, save that for the fall, please.
Yeah, I'm sorry. We'll have to have good 10 minutes per episode of just Ryan's Mahomes talk. But he's proven that he's not that way, and I don't think I've seen that out of Lamar yet, where he can take it up another level. I've seen Mahomes have games where he completely changed the way he plays football, and I've seen Lamar do the same thing again and again and again and again and again, and sometimes get good results.
Yeah.
So, are you an innovator or are you an expert?
Or an inventor.
Yeah, an inventor. I like that better. Are you an innovator or an inventor? Because one of those is remembered, and the other one is more important.
Right.
So.
Yeah. We're going to move on to probably the biggest piece of NFL news this past week. There was a new media deal signed between the NFL and the various media organizations of CBS, NBC, ABC/ESPN, Fox, and Amazon as well. So, what's your reaction to this new media deal for 2022 through 2023?
We just talked about
2023 through 2020. 2023 through 2033.
Yes.
Excuse me. Yeah.
We just talked about marketing with women's basketball and how that's a big thing. I think this is a good move by the NFL. The Amazon Prime thing, to me, as a person that doesn't have the best streaming capabilities, that kind of sucks for me, but I am by far a minority in that. And that the majority of audiences don't have, majority of people do still have, cable, like a box, like a TV setting. But there's a large portion of the population that I can name. My aunt just does all streaming because she's not, unless you're a sports person, there's borderline no reason having television. Like
I'll argue against that one, but go on.
Well, I'm saying people can find things online, like through Amazon Prime especially.
Right.
Amazon Prime especially, you can buy what?
I guess it's your choice, because if you think about this, and maybe if you're out there listening, you can do the math for me. If you compare a satellite bill with DirecTV, we'll say.
Yeah.
You compare that and you add up all these streaming services. Let's say you get,
5. If you get 5, get the big ones. HBO Max, Netflix,
Yes.
Prime, Disney Plus, Hulu. You get the big 5.
Right.
That's going to be about as much. That's going to be about the same.
Right. I
Yeah.
mean, at some point, it's going to add up and be about the same amount.
But everyone in
Prices
America,
just keep getting jacked up anyway.
pretty much everyone in America has Netflix and
or Hulu.
And I'm saying Netflix and or Hulu, and then on top of that, if they have another one, they have Disney Plus and / or Prime Video or HBO Max.
And we gotta throw an ESPN Plus there too, because ESPN
a
Plus
good amount
also.
of people, a good amount of people have.
But then
those,
by the time what?
that appeals to a smaller.
Peacock
is gaining traction. I don't know if you know this.
It's free, and then it goes into.
It's free, and then it's paid with ads, and then it's the $12 is no ads.
Okay, so you have that, and on top of that, you're gonna have Paramount Plus.
Yeah,
Paramount
people
Plus
are getting
that is CBS and Paramount.
There's so many.
I mean, this is what the future is going into. But I don't still see cable going away. But anyway.
No, I don't think cable will go away. But I'm
Anyway.
saying it's a good move. And another thing with Peacock, I don't know if you know this, WWE. I'm a big pro wrestling guy. Peacock acquired the exclusive pay-per-view rights to WWE. For those of you who don't know much about pro wrestling, it's moved away from the pay-per-view system about 7 years ago after WrestleMania 29. They moved to what?
Nothing. I didn't know.
All right, after WrestleMania 29, it'd be 8 years ago this March.
Okay.
They moved to a streaming service called WWE Network, which is $10 a month for, all this extra WWE programming. So you've got extra promo shows, all this stuff, and the pay-per-views, which essentially, if you had 5 months, which would be 5 WWE pay-per-views, you'd be paying for one pay-per-view in the old system. Because the old pay-per-views would be like $40, $50. Mm-hmm. So it was an ingenious deal by WWE, and if you're still buying pay-per-views, you're literally throwing money away. And because you get more content for 1/5 of the price. Mm-hmm. And the network was extremely successful for WWE, and they started in 2014, which is pretty ahead of the times. Mm-hmm. A lot of the companies have moved to a streaming service in the last 3 years. Mm-hmm. So Peacock just acquired the rights, and I'm probably going to get Peacock soon because I got to watch WrestleMania.
Right.
So Peacock, that's a really smart move by NBC because you're a service that has shows I like to watch, but I'm not going to subscribe just for Cheers. But if I already have you for WWE, I might pop on Cheers. You know what I'm saying?
Cheers is best. But come on, Ted Danson.
Yeah.
But when I read through this new media deal, I think one big thing is that ABC is getting Super Bowls back once again.
Yes.
Finally.
Who do you think their team will be?
Well, hopefully not the 3 that are on there now.
True.
But I'm always pitching for this one, and I'd like them to just double sign Herbie and Chris Fowler to do both the Saturday night game for the college marquee matchup for college football, and then come back and do Monday night football.
I think that's a good idea. And for their Super Bowl team, I think you got to go. See, for Super Bowl, it doesn't matter what network you are, correct? Because, I mean, we saw Romo.
Yes,
It does matter.
Yes,
Yeah,
I mean,
okay.
CBS gets their
Yeah,
CBS
you're right.
football.
Romo's CBS.
Yes,
Never mind.
yes,
I don't know.
yes.
For a moment, I thought Romo's Fox. I'm like, wait a minute. Fox
Right.
is the worst. Fox always has the worst for football. I'm serious.
And I should plug in this also for ESPN since they have Monday Night Football. They are able to flex more games to Monday night now. They're going to get more power to flex to Monday night, so bigger games on Monday night instead, which would be interesting to see. But anyway, yeah, piggybacking on the streaming, yeah, Amazon Prime for the next 10 years after the 2021 and the 2022 season, they get the exclusive Thursday Night Football rights.
I think that's a good move for everyone involved. Yeah,
right. And then moving on, the biggest thing I think that I see here is that Sunday Ticket was essentially untouched here in this deal, and Sunday Ticket's going to stay with DirecTV, and it's still going to be the broad package, comparing to NBA League Pass, which is on DirecTV. But what you can do now is you can piece that, and you can, instead of buying the whole thing, you can just buy your certain team. Now you can also stream it as well. So there's still no streaming with Sunday Ticket. It's still a broad package, and I think that's something that's important to me because I have DirecTV at my house, and I like to be able to flip back and forth between all the games.
Now, personally, I do think there's real value in the idea. The NBA League Pass system, they've essentially moved it to be their own streaming service where you can pay and you can just stream any game. And I know I remember reading an article about a year ago. I don't know if they've changed it because I don't have League Pass because, like I said, I don't have the best Wi-Fi. Mm-hmm. But it's essentially just their Netflix. You turn it on. You go to any game. You go to any game that's been shown in the last whatever. Mm-hmm. And I think it'd be cool if they did historical games. I'm not sure if they do. Mm-hmm. But you just go on there. It's essentially just the entire NBA game library. And I'm weird, and I think it'd be funny to just go back and watch a random Cavs game from last December that I went to a game. I just think that'd be funny. But I do think there's real value in the idea. And this isn't just because I don't have Direct. I do think when you're Direct, you're making bank off the Sunday Ticket idea. But when you're the NFL, I do think you wonder, how many more people can we be reaching if we just go freelance and we say, here's Sunday Ticket, get it on your Apple TV, get it on your Roku, and maybe you bump it up $2 or $3.
Right. I think right now it's $150 for 6 months.
Yeah, if maybe you up at $160 and then you put it streaming. I don't know.
Well, I think if you got it, if that's for the broad package, right? Because then you have to strip it down and say, well, per team we're playing.
I just think there's money being lost there from people that don't want DirecTV, but they love the NFL, so they just deal.
Right.
And I think that there's real money being lost there, and I do think eventually they're going to move away from that.
Right. Well, yeah, at some point, because as we get more streaming. But for now, it looks like Sunday Ticket stays put until that is dealt with in the future. On to NBA, as we just had the trade deadline last week, and this is Ryan's favorite topic. Ryan, who benefited the most from the trades that took place right before the deadline last week?
Oddly enough, I thought a team that didn't really make any big trades, and that's the Lakers, because being as my Cavs didn't get really any move for Drummond, they got to sign Andre Drummond from a buyout, which really sucks for me as a Cavs fan. I really wish we would have handled this situation differently, and I really wanted Drummond to the Hornets, and that didn't happen, so, I love my Hornets, but I really wish that would have happened, so I'm upset, and this obviously makes the Lakers better, which makes me upset. That's a really great move for the Lakers, though. Bulls, you finally got somebody who's on Zach LaVine's level, paired with him. I can't wait to see what Billy Donovan does with the two of them in a pick-and-roll situation. I've gone from being a guy who wasn't a huge Zach LaVine fan to being in love with him after watching him lately. He's really freaking good. Back to the Hornets, though. I'm very upset that LaMelo Ball's injured. But Zach LaVine's really good. I think Vucevic has been really good, too. That's a great move. Oddly enough, I think the Magic kind of won all their trades, though. Like, Vucevic, great, but you're going to get bad. Right now, they're tanking so they can get Cade Cunningham, which I don't blame them. He's freaking amazing. And on top of that, they're getting Wendell Carter Jr., who I think has the potential to be an all-star level center. I think he's amazing. And they also, from the Nuggets, they got R.J. Hampton, who I think is very underrated. He's really good. And they got Gary Harris, who's a fun shooting guard to have. He's a nice player you'd want to have on a competing team. So I think the Magic oddly got really good young pieces they can build around by moving Aaron Gordon and Vucevic, who are essentially pointless to have at this moment because you're not a team who's contending for playoffs. So you might as well just get good young pieces and build around them. And I think that was actually quite great by the Magic. I think that was really impressive. And Aaron Gordon, knowing how things usually go with the Magic, he's probably either going to do amazing in Denver or completely suck and not live up to expectations. Because when you leave the Magic, you either do amazing or terrible. So that'll be interesting.
Is that what you say about Dwight Howard?
I mean, to a point. I mean, Dwight Howard was a top 10 player in the NBA.
And they made the
left.
NBA Finals when he was at the Magic.
Yeah, and then he left and never been the same. Granted, that's a lot of outside factors, but still. And then, Shaq was amazing for the Magic, and he got even better once he left.
Right. Do you think the Bulls, I mean, right now they're going to be in the play-in tournament.
Yep.
But do you think they're going to be able to stay in the tournament now with Vucevic?
Oh, heck yeah. I think they're I wish they had a better record going in. To be honest, I really like the Knicks. If they play the Knicks, it'd be a great series. But I think this is a good move for the Bulls. This is more of a next year move, though. Just once you have a full season, you're going to have a higher playoff spot. And I'm guessing they're going to try to go out and get somebody big free agent-wise. I think they're one piece away from being like a legit guy. But I don't think Zach LaVine at the moment is a best player on a championship team. So you need that guy, and they don't have that guy. If Kawhi Leonard left the Clippers and went to Chicago, which would be completely insane, and I shouldn't be saying this, but if that would happen, I think that makes them a contender. I don't think he would do that. I don't even know why I said that. But I'm just giving an example. If that would occur, let's say the Clippers do bad again in the playoffs and Kawhi says, screw this, I'm out, Chicago's a good option now. Chicago looks so much more enticing now, and they have a really good player there in Lauri Markkanen who's very movable. I would love to see him on the Hornets. He was a very movable player to get assets for. So they went from being like really abysmal to really nice, and I do like what the Magic are doing. A lineup of Cade Cunningham, Cole Anthony, Terrence Ross as your veteran leader with Wendell Carter and Gary Harris. It's kind of a smaller lineup, but I think that's a fun lineup. And RJ Hampton, I think, has got a lot of potential too. So Mo Bamba's also off the bench. The Magic got really interesting real fast, and hopefully they get some nicer jerseys because I like the retros, but I'm not a huge fan of their new ones. And I know you're laughing at me.
Well, you like your jerseys, which is fine.
Yep.
So, real quick before we wrap up with Happy Time, forgot to mention that the NCAA Women's Basketball Tournament Championship is on Sunday. So before we record again, I was wondering if you would like to make a pick for your champion for this year.
Well, am I really going to go against UConn? Am I really going to do it?
It's UConn versus the field right now, I feel.
That's how it always is.
Well, yeah.
I mean, essentially, it's really how it always feels. I'm going to go UConn. They'd have to play Stanford in the Final Four, right?
No,
they can beat they play in the championship.
Yes.
I'm going to go UConn over Louisville.
You're going to UConn over Louisville. Okay.
Louisville,
as I say, my southern cousins say it, Louisville, but Louisville. I'm taking UConn, obviously, over Stanford, over the Cardinal. I'd like to see a big matchup.
There's some weird there, Stanford. That would be money, though.
I really would like to see the matchup, Kiana Williams versus Paige Beckers. They're each team's leading guard. I would like to see Gino versus Tara Vanderveer. They are the two winningest coaches of all time in college women's basketball. 3 wins separate them, interesting enough. And if Tara Vanderveer and the Cardinal lost to Louisville tomorrow night, Gino, if he won the championship, would tie Tara for 1,121 wins all time. So, but that's who I'm picking. I'm picking UConn. In my bracket, I picked them 66-61 over Stanford.
We just talked a lot about marketing last week. Right there, you just elevator pitched me right into that UConn-Stanford game. And if that becomes the game, everybody's got to tune. Stuff like that, that's a really interesting game to watch. Everything you just named. And even if it's Louisville, I can't say it now. I lost it. Louisville. Even if it's Louisville.
A mouthful of popcorn. Louisville.
Even if it's Louisville, it's stitle an incredibly interesting matchup.
Right, and they played twice before. They played once before.
Yeah, and being a Buecker backer, I'm saying they really gotta market it better. And I think that, especially that Stanford UConn game, that's an incredibly marketable matchup.
Yep.
Especially if we're gonna be getting into an Oregon State Arkansas national title.
That can't happen.
No, not against each other. I'm saying one of those teams being the national title. A UConn and a
Right.
Stanford has a lot
Right, I know
more
what you mean.
broad appeal than an
Yeah.
Arkansas in the national title.
Yeah.
I'm saying, it just really, I've been thinking about that more and more with what we said with the marketing, and it's really true. And I'm like, the women's is very powerhouse heavy right now, and the men's isn't. And I think that makes them equally, if not maybe the women's a bit more marketable, because casual fans of sports like to see dominance because they don't really watch it every week, so they don't care if a team's dominating.
Right.
And they like being able to be like, hey, I know that team. They were in it last year.
Right.
So the casual fan either hates Tom Brady and they come back every Super Bowl to watch him lose, or they love Tom Brady, or they love a Patrick Mahomes, or they love a dominant player, and they like see him win every year.
Right.
Hardcore fans, those are the ones who like your Packers, where they haven't been a Super Bowl winner very often. They've only won one with Rodgers, and I'm using NFL as my example, but I'm saying casual sports fans go to your dominant teams.
Right.
So everybody loves a good underdog story, which is why you get that with people following teams like Loyola. This year it's looking like at Oregon State, you know what I mean? So I do think there's real marketability in UConn where if you're a casual, person who only watches March Madness for women, there's real marketability in the two biggest teams in women's college basketball.
Right.
And then it's like, the two of the most winning coaches of all time. And, they're going to beat each other's records. And I feel like that's incredibly interesting. And it just makes me think, like, man, NCAA should hire us as their marketing team because we really got some good ideas
I'm
there.
not trying to get myself another job, so I'll bow out on that one. But yes, very good
I
point.
do think
And,
your pick is more realistic, Stanford, UConn, but there's just something about
Is it-
Louisville. I like Louisville.
Yeah,
I like
anything can
Louisville.
happen.
I mean, it might be Baylor, Louisville.
Yeah, it could be, or it could be South Carolina, UConn. It can be South Carolina.
Oh, yeah. I'd love to see a South Carolina.
South Carolina's on that side with Stanford. But tune in Friday night. Final Four will be on ESPN for the women's tournament. Obviously,
Is the men's Monday night?
is on Saturday for the Final Four. The championship for women's is Sunday, and the men's is on Monday.
So we're gonna go before that?
So yes, we're gonna try and record before that. I have a day off that day. So
Sweet.
we'll plan on
Well,
that.
yep, we'll do it probably around
And you have
3.
the day off too. So.
Oh, yeah, we can do that in the
Spring
morning
break,
maybe.
So yeah, whenever we want to get
All right,
together.
so
anyway,
one more thing. Who's on the bracket? Who does UConn win if they win tonight? Who does UConn play if they win
play?
tonight? Yeah.
They play between Arizona and Indiana.
Ooh.
So they should
Indiana.
They should have an easier.
Yeah,
path.
that's a lot easier. But maybe Indiana's the Cinderella team.
Yes, I mean, who knows? But
That'd be crazy if they lost to friggin' Indiana. I don't think it'll happen. I think
No.
UConn's going to the national title.
I'm hoping so.
If they beat Baylor, I think they're a lock for the title.
Yes, I agree. Kim Mulkey's got a good team, got a lot of height there,
And they
too.
got their coach back.
So, yes, and they have Gino back, which
Yeah.
is definitely boosting some confidence. But anyway, we're moving on to happy time, people. Happy 80th birthday tomorrow, Jerry Lucas. Jerry Lucas, a native Ohioan from Middletown, where he played high school basketball, was the leading career scorer there with 2,460 points. He also won 2 state titles at Middletown. He went on to attend Ohio State, where he led the Buckeyes in scoring and rebounding, along with getting to 3 straight NCAA tournament championship games, winning once in 1960. After that, he never thought he'd ever become a professional basketball player because of his multiple injuries to his back and to his knees, but instead he was drafted and began his NBA career at the Cincinnati Royals, playing alongside Oscar Robertson.
The Big O.
He was later moved on to the San Francisco Warriors for 2 seasons and ended his career at the New York Knicks, where he was part of their last NBA championship team in 1973. He was awarded NBA Rookie of the Year in 1964, and it was a 3-time NBA first-teamer as well. Ryan, how do you remember Jerry Lucas?
Much like we talked last week about John Havlicek and Elgin Baylor and those guys, these older players that aren't named Bill Russell and Wilt Chamberlain that get forgotten, him along with Walt Frazier are 2 really, really good basketball players. That Knicks team's a really good team. People really forget about them because 1970s NBA is kind of the Wild West because borderline everyone's doing cocaine, and so there's a lot of random NBA championships. Are you giving me a face? Bill Simmons and Bill Simmons' book of basketball.
70s,
yeah,
right? Okay.
The 70s NBA is probably the craziest decade in all sports because they buy the ABA, which was a complete street ball type basketball game.
Right.
And the NBA was very post-up heavy, slow game. So then the 80s is why it's so amazing, is because those merged through Magic and Bird.
Right.
So 1980, I'm giving you a bit of NBA history. I'm getting all excited. And 1984 is really the big year that the NBA takes off because Magic Bird really becomes big. Michael Jordan gets drafted along with Charles Barkley, John Stockton, Hakeem Olajuwon. From then on, after that, you get the Lakers-Celtics rivalry with the Rockets getting that one title. Then you get the Bad Boy Pistons, which gets everybody hating them, which leads to more viewership, which then leads to the superhero Michael Jordan, and which then leads to his three-peat, him being gone, which drew more eyes to the NBA because people are like, oh no, our hero's gone. It's like Death of Superman comic book where now you got to see what happens after until he comes back like 3 issues later, but
Right.
Then Jordan, comes back three-peats again, and then the NBA went through a weird period without Jordan, and then once LeBron's drafted, you get that, and him, everyone wanted to see him versus Kobe, and then, you know the story from there, but people really forget about 70s NBA because it's kind of weird, like there's just random championships, there's a random Seattle Supersonics, if you ask people, Bill Walton NBA championship, people will look at you funny, but if you tell people, how many rings Bill Russell have, they can tell you 11. So there's this real thing there where 70s NBA, including myself, there's some NBA championships I slightly forget about, even because they're 1970s. It's just weird, and that's why I think some people kind of diss on Kareem's greatness is because his best years were in the 70s. So Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, though, I bet was not on cocaine. He seems like a pretty clean.
No, he's fine.
He's a pretty clean
He's
fella.
fine, yes.
But Jerry Lucas was a really good center for both college and pro, especially that Ohio State team's crazy, having John Havlicek, who big fan of. And, yeah, I just think he's a really good player, very old school player, and I don't think there's really a lot more to be said. He played with two great point guards with Oscar Robertson and Walt Frazier, both pushing the game a lot, especially Oscar Robertson. He's a very modern point guard for the late 60s, early 70s. So, yeah, oddly enough, Oscar Robertson played with another great big man with Kareem Abdul-Jabbar
Right.
in Milwaukee. So,
Right. Yes. Having an anniversary tomorrow on this day in 2000, Michael Phelps broke the world record in the 200-meter butterfly at the United States World Championship Trials at 15 years and 9 months old. He would go on to compete in 5 Olympic Games after he briefly retired after 2012, the London Olympics there, and came back and he went on to win 28 Olympic medals, with 23 of those being gold. How do you remember Michael Phelps' career there, Ryan?
well, growing up the age I did, he is the prototype Olympian. He is every Olympics swimming. That was the one I always set out to watch, that in basketball. But swimming even more, because basketball is usually kind of a beat down for the NBA anymore.
Right.
And it's kind of weird now because the big stars don't really even feel like doing it because it's such a beat down. So it's just kind of a weird hobby.
Yeah, it's not as fun as when the Dream Team was there.
Yeah.
But plus, that was also the inaugural.
Exactly.
That's big. But all the big stars were there.
Yeah.
I mean, Magic came out of retirement. Larry held on because he was retiring.
Yep.
And those kinds of things.
And so, I do think he's the prototype Olympian. It's going to be weird watching the Olympics this summer and not having Michael Phelps. He's always been the one I look forward to. He was like, I don't want to say he was a childhood hero. I wasn't hanging up pictures of him in my room or anything. But I'm saying, like, I was a big fan of him. I wanted to, I always set out watching swimming. He's pretty much, I don't think there's any argument. He's probably like the greatest swimmer ever. He's been insane since the year 2000, where he was like 19 years old winning gold. He's amazing. He's what more has there not been said? I have the Sports Illustrated commemorative issue about his career when he retired. Just a really, really amazing Olympian. He's one of America's most recognizable non-pro sports figures because no one watches pro swimming. You know what I mean?
Right,
Olympics is really where that comes out.
Right.
And I think if you ask people, the Olympics, who are you watching? I think probably 80% of the people in America are going to say Michael Phelps.
Yeah.
He's the poster boy for the Olympics, and
Yes.
now America has to find somebody new.
Another poster person would be Carrie Walsh Jennings for beach volleyball. So she's been there a long time.
Now they really pushed their big star now, who I'm also a huge fan of. I really like her, is Simone Biles.
Yes.
That seems to be the big U.S.
Yes.
Olympian
And
that's
it'll
all
be
over.
interesting to see because usually gymnasts do not come back for a second time around.
Yeah.
Because they, as they get older, your muscles tighten up and those kinds of things. So she's coming back for a second time around. I'll be interested to see how she leads.
And then they'll
that
find
team.
somebody new.
Right.
But Simone has really been the one they've been pushing lately. I find that
Yes.
interesting. There's always like the big Olympian they like to push, and they've really been pushing Simone.
Yes,
Well,
they
she's
have.
really cool.
Yeah,
I really like
she
Simone
is, and
Biles.
plus she's from Ohio anyway.
Yeah.
So
We also see her a lot because of that.
yes, so that helps out. But happy trails this past Saturday to Oral Roberts. Oral Roberts, the Cinderella, the second 15 seed to make it to the Sweet 16, lost after a comeback win by the Arkansas Razorbacks, 72-70 to finish off. And Oral Roberts had a chance to win that game still. They had the last second shot, but couldn't pull out in front.
Yeah.
So happy trails to them, and congrats on a great win, great run this past March.
Yeah, I'm sad to see him go. I really liked Oral Roberts. Thought they were a fun team, but I don't think anybody really thought they were legitimately a contender. I think everybody just thought, enjoy the ride while it's here.
Exactly.
And we can't expect every Cinderella team to be Loyola Chicago from 3 years ago,
Right.
where you end up making a Final
That
Four
or
run.
VCU under Shaka Smart. Or
Yeah,
whatever,
exactly.
so.
Not every Cinderella team is a Final Four level team, and there are Cinderella teams that dwindle out after a few rounds. And I think that's just
Right.
There's always the fun ones, and there's always the legit ones. I think Oregon State's more legit. I should really stop talking about them. I'm gonna ruin their game tonight. But
7-15.
yeah, it was a fun run while it lasted. Let's hope Oral Roberts can be back in that position. But they're one of those teams when you play in those conferences, you have to win the conference tournament.
Right.
So
You have to.
unless they schedule like a bunch of Power 5 games and win, which I don't think is going to happen.
At least 5 out of
Yeah.
10 if they schedule 10 big ones. But all right, well, that's it for episode 3 of the Sort of Sports Big Salad podcast. Be sure to join us next week. Good night. This is Quinn Maseko speaking for the Big Salad, a Ryan Klinger production. Please note that portions of this podcast were edited before the final cut was produced. The sections of Toss Up and Happy Time are copied from the ESPN show Pardon the Interruption, and there was no intention to infringe on that copyright of these segments and their related music. Stay tuned for our next podcast next Monday here on the Sort of Sports Podcast YouTube channel.